call the May 10th Parks and Rec meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Cassie, is there anyone in the public chat room? Cassie?
Yes, I'm coming. We are live now. We have members of the public in the chat room, and for anybody who is listening in, when the item comes up that you would like to comment on, please raise your hand. If you're from the computer, you can click on participants to raise or lower. If you're calling in from a cell phone, there's the option more to raise or lower. And anybody on a dial-in phone, *9 to raise and lower your hand. And that will allow us to track who has public comment on the item.
Thank you, Cassie. I'd like to do a special welcome to three new board members, Charles, Sam, and Kelly. Thank you very much for your service. We look forward to working with you on Thursday. I recently had brain surgery for my Parkinson's, and so if I seem a little slow, I'm living in quite a bit of fog. So bear with me. And if my speech isn't clear, just ask me to clarify. Cassie, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Dale?
Present.
John?
Here.
Margie?
Here.
Aaron?
Here.
Charles?
Here.
Kelly?
Here.
Sam?
Here.
Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the April 12th meeting.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Cassie, to call the roll, please.
Yes. Dale?
Present. Yes.
John?
Aye.
Margie?
Aye.
Aaron?
Yes.
Charles?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes are approved. Are there any staff announcements?
I do have some announcements, Dale. Donna Gockler, Director of Parks and Recreation, and I wanted to remind the board that we have strategic planning from 11:30 to 7:30 on Thursday. So it's a long day. We'll make sure we get you food, and please just work with Cassie on any preferences for food and beverages. And we so appreciate your time. I also wanted to recognize that last month was the last meeting for Sonia Verlandic, Wendy Nittman, and Danny Gunlocks after years of service to this board. And so I wanted to do a shout out to them and let the folks here today know that we're planning an event on June 29th at Fort Missoula Regional Park to recognize a number of board members, as well as celebrate with Friends of Missoula Parks and Friends of Fort Missoula Regional Park, and the many folks who contributed to making that facility the active place it is today. And then I too wanted to echo a welcome to our new board members because it's a lot of commitment. And I am very delighted to have such a great mix of representatives from our community. And I look forward to working with you. And when we get to visit in person on Thursday, I will be looking forward to setting up some additional opportunities, if you would like, for kind of orientation to the board and what it does and how it functions, and just answer any questions you might have. So thank you so much. Thanks, Dale.
Thank you. When's the celebration again?
June 29th, and we'll get invites out to everybody here in the next week or two.
That's great. Thank you, Donna, very much.
Dale, just to comment real quick, kind of piggybacking on what Donna said. Donna, I remember that we had some park board orientation manuals, and since that time we've added an awful lot of material with maps for conservation lands, for parks, things like that. Is that part of the orientation process for new board members? Are they going to get all that material?
It is, and we've already been sharing quite a bit of material in live links to different documents, and we will continue to do that.
That's great. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there any public comments that have nothing to do with the agenda items?
I do see Ron B in the waiting room has his hand raised, but I'm not sure if the comment is a non-agenda, so I'm going to allow to talk. And
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron-
Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes.
So Ron, this is any comment not on the agenda are you
That is
willing to speak? Okay.
That is correct. Yes, ma'am. It won't take long. Thank you for letting my call in. Last month, I called in and you guys had a presentation by Dig Missoula last month that talked about the sand volleyball courts. And I was with Dig Missoula when we originally started that project and helped with the fundraising portion. Last year I had health issues. I wasn't able to continue at Dig Missoula on the completion of the project last year. But however, listening to their call, I just wanted to follow up and discuss the sprinkler situation. I wasn't able to call in last month. And John, if you remember back when we released the first court, when Parks and Rec was kind enough to release the enterprise funds to help with that first court, which was about $6,000. Your question at that board meeting was, are there any maintenance? What's the maintenance on this, Ron? And really, it's really low. And they've been holding up, reasonably well. But the problem is the amount of water that are being added to those courts. And, with water and sand, we have really two key ingredients to cement that are happening there. So they really get compacted. In the summertime, we have the Hellgate and Sentinel volleyball teams. They show up pretty early in the morning and those courts are soaked. So the maintenance costs, they're going to become an issue. And I think when I was listening last month, John asked if there's some sort of blockade that could happen. That may need to happen sooner than later until they get the sprinklers fixed. But I guess my main concern is that this has gone on, and I was out last year, but it's been talked about, and it keeps getting put off, and it is an issue. I imagine, if the pickleball courts were soaked every morning, that the sprinklers would be fixed, and the sand volleyball courts haven't been a concern. And my other issue that is a concern that I just want to address because it doesn't seem right is that the nonprofit Dig Missoula, and my wife and I donated over $1,000 of our own money to help with the court remodel, has put over $20,000 of their money into the courts. And now it seems like they feel like they're being asked to fund this sprinkler fix. And that doesn't seem like it should be within their purview. So I guess I do take issue with that and would want the board to know that information if they did not know that. So that was my main reason for calling. It is an issue that needs dealt with. And I don't think it's anywhere near the purview of a nonprofit to fix sprinklers that are overwatering something that just shouldn't be getting watered. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ron. Any other?
Kind of a follow-up to that, Dale?
Go ahead.
If I recall, and I think it's noted in the minutes that the department was going to get some bids from the outside to have that work contracted due to the complexity of the redirect. And they were going to report back to us. Is that still the plan?
Lincoln has his hand raised.
Hi, John, and thanks for your comments, Ron. Lincoln Lake, Develop Parks and Trails Manager here. Yeah, I've actually been in communications with Paul Standen and Dig Missoula, and hoping to get with him and meet Mickey down there at Playfair to discuss with hopefully two different contractors this time for getting bids around the sprinkler redirect. Unfortunately, the 2 or 3 bids that we got last year kind of fell by the wayside. The contractors got busy this spring and are unable to do the work. So we have to get a couple of different bids to get this figured out. We're looking at getting that done hopefully within the next couple of months.
Okay, and again, just to my point, it was about that where, I mean, the price of that and where that's going to come from. And I was hoping it's not going to land. Dig Missoula seems to think that they are being asked to be responsible for some of that cost, if not all of it.
Thanks, Ron. I think what I'd like to do is maybe leave that to staff to give us a report back on that. And Thanks for your comments, Ron, and keeping us on task. And
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other public comments? Non-agenda
other
item?
Nope.
Great. So moving right along, we're in action item 2.1, Karis Park rededication. Don or Sylvia on the line?
I can speak to that first, if I may. We've been working with a group of citizens on a dedication of Karis Park. So Karis Park was named back some time ago in the 70s. And so the request is to install a plaque that describes why the park was named Karis Park in March of 1977 by the park board, and to install that plaque at the base of the stairs that come off of Bear Tracks Bridge. The plaque location, the plaque stand will be temporary because we are in the midst of implementing a master plan for the park. And so did not want to spend a lot of resources installing, placing, only to have to move it later. Nevertheless, will be in a prominent location as proposed. The items that came with your packet show the details of the plaque, including the stand, the location, the naming rights, the historical naming, and then the resolution is it's a rededication or acknowledgement of that name. You might remember that we did something similar with the Milwaukee Trail a long time ago because of the confusion around Kim Williams. And so the staff recommendation is to support the request. And I believe we have Sylvia here to speak from the subcommittee or the committee that's been working on this for quite some time.
Thank you, Donna. Sylvia, you're on the line.
I'm in here with you.
Do you have any comments?
Well, we're just hoping that you will approve our request for a resolution, and we kind of feel this is long overdue. It was kind of a surprise. We just discovered that nothing happened about naming James K. Karis in the park somewhere, and we thought that that would be a good interpretive resolution to put into the park. And then as the ideas grew, we decided it would be great to do a rededication of Karis Park since you're doing a lot of remodeling, and it would be a nice gesture for the city of Missoula to essentially have a big rededication, which we're planning in late August. So everybody seems to be excited about it. And I've been working directly with Bill Karis and Jim Karis on this to get everything sorted out. So I think that I would look forward to having you support this resolution.
Thank you, Sylvia, very much. Can we get a motion on the floor, please?
I will recommend that we adopt a resolution rededicating Karis Park and authorize installation of a plaque per the attached exhibits.
And is there a second?
I'll second the resolution.
Thank you, Aaron. Is there any other comments, any other discussion? Any comments from the members of the public?
No comment.
Well, Cassie, do the roll call, please.
Dale,
Yes.
John,
yes,
Margie,
Yes,
Aaron,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next agenda item is the adoption of the Bluebird Preserve Recreation and Special Resource Management Plan. Jeff, would you give a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Dale. Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Geckelhorn, Conservation Lands Program Manager for the city. I am going to share a little bit of background for those new members about where the Bluebird property is and the scope of the plan before very quickly going through a summary of the public comments we received and the one change we made to the draft plan as a function of CLAC reviewing those public comments. So,
Jeff, will you just remind everyone to what CLAC is?
yes, thanks, John. CLAC is the Conservation Lands Advisory Committee. This is a subcommittee as appointed by Parks Board that focuses on conservation lands and all of the issues and management considerations around our just shy of 5,000 acres of open space lands around the city. So we meet monthly from September through April. And last month in April, CLAC reviewed the draft Bluebird Recreation and Special Resource Management Plan as their last agenda item for the planning season. So in the attachment, you have the draft Bluebird Recreation and Special Resource Management Plan. You also have the summary of all public comment received and of staff response to those public comments. So again, I'm going to bounce around a little bit here, highlight where the site is, and then move to the public comments. So if we look at the location of the Bluebird Preserve, that is the 124-acre property outlined in green on this map. Here you can see downtown Missoula, the Interstate 90 corridor, Reserve Street, and this property is located at the southern end of Grant Creek, just on the east side, behind or to the east of the Snowball overflow parking lot if you've driven up Grant Creek. Directly adjacent to that property, and as part of the plan, some aspects of the plan, is a 303-acre property owned by Republic Services, and the city, through Five Valleys Land Trust, holds a public access trails easement on this property. Chad Bauer with Republic Services is graciously here on the call. I think he's in the public section. And so I may ask him to speak at the end about the partnership related to implementation of this project. So again, you can see other city conservation lands here shown in light green. You can see the valley-wide trail system, and then adjacent other public lands in various other colors. If I go down one page and zoom in, again, just highlighting here is the Grant Creek I-90 interchange, and here is the property location. We're going to get into more specifics after we review the public comment received. I am going to jump, excuse me. So in March, we brought forward the draft Bluebird Management Plan to Parks Board and requested a 1-month public comment period. That 1-month public comment period ended in early April, and we received 69 public comments, 4 of which we deemed substantive. And so in general, we have a lot of comment that we received across various topics. And so, it's appropriate for us to respond to all of those, at least the themes that are shared across all comments. And then if individual comments we deem to be substantive, essentially they brought up something that we had not addressed, something where we had incorrect information, something along those lines, we addressed those comments directly. And so, and I will come back to this. I just want to review, we asked some general questions, 2 questions here. So does the Bluebird Management Plan properly balance public recreation with wildlife and natural resource protections for this area? And the second question, does the Bluebird Management Plan provide adequate recreational trails and allowed uses for this location? And across the board, we received overwhelming support for both of those questions. So 92% agreement with question 1, the balance of public recreation and wildlife and natural resource protections. And 2, 88% agreement with appropriate recreation trails and allowable uses. One thing that I'm really excited about is the distribution of respondents around the city. And we received responses from 13 of 18 neighborhoods around the city, with Grant Creek being the most. But this is really impressive. We had a bit of media coverage about this planning effort, and we got a great distribution of responses from residents around the valley. So I'm really happy to see that. We know that this property is in a underserved portion of town as it relates to open space access. And for neighborhoods like the North Side, West Side, or the Mullen Road area, this is going to be their closest open space access point. And so it's very important that we get responses from those neighborhoods as well as residents throughout the valley. So I'm not going to go into specific comments. I did want to highlight the substantive comments that we received very briefly. So we received 4 substantive comments. These were from the Grand Creek Trails Association, covering a whole lot of uses primarily related to public access trail facilities, protected crossings across Grant Creek Road, trash in the parking lot. And again, I'm not going to go into specifics here about how we responded to each one. There were a number of private residents that responded. Again, very similar concerns about trash, public access, how would we manage those, requesting more information. And then again, addressed each of those individually. I'm going to go back up here to the the change that CLAC voted on. And so in the April CLAC meeting, we reviewed all public comment received, and there was discussion around a number of topics. CLAC moved and voted 8-0 to recommend the plan with one change. And that one change was related to equestrian use of the property. So as we had originally proposed, the property would be accessible by pedestrians and equestrians, right? The Bluebird property itself would be accessible year round, whereas the Republic Services easement is only open to the public, or will only be open to the public from April 1st through September 30th due to seasonal restrictions on their property. The discussion around equestrian use was the anticipated high levels of use of the property and the potential for overuse at the wrong times of year when trail surfaces are soft, and the potential impact to trail surfaces by equestrian use in the shoulder seasons and in the winter. And so CLAC voted 8-0 to recommend the plan as you see it. And the only change was to propose restricting equestrian use to April 1st to September 30th, thereby aligning with the Republic Services property and the open period for that property, therefore a larger trail system as accessible to equestrians. So again, that's the only change that was proposed. I do want to bring up one, and I'm going to move to the maps here to show what we're talking about. If you look at the planning area as a whole here, you can see the Bluebird property on the west here outlined in green, and the Republic Services property on the east outlined in blue. Again, the Bluebird property is accessible, will be accessible year round, whereas the Republic Services property will only be accessible from April 1st to September 30th. And the conversation was, this system is relatively small when it's only, when that's the only portion of the system that's open, whereas you approximately double the mileage of trail from about 2.5 to about 5 when the Republic Services property is open. That allows users to spread out, and it allows for longer loop options for pedestrians and equestrians. One thing I do want to point out here, I'm going to go to the next page, and this is a staff recommendation as per discussion after the CLAC meeting. Here you can see this trail in yellow. This is a proposed pedestrian only trail. You can see this small spur in teal here as proposed shared use. After conversations after our CLAC meeting, the recommendation is to change this one spur to pedestrian only, so that the major trails and loop options would be open to pedestrians and equestrians, but the option to get out to the overlook and the potential congestion associated with this small intersection here and a dead-end trail essentially has the potential to provide conflict between pedestrians and equestrians, let's say dogs and equestrians, things like that. And so the recommendation from staff would be to make a change and designate this small overlook spur as pedestrian only to be consistent with what is proposed here. And again, this is getting to an overlook. It's a dead end trail, whereas all of the other trails are loop options that are mostly old road grades built at a 6 to 8 foot width and can accommodate high levels of use. I did want to invite Chad to speak. They've been, Public Service has been an exceptional partner and very appreciative of their willingness to open their property to public use seasonally. And so I wanted to invite him to speak about the project as a whole as well.
Thank you, Jeff. Chad, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jeff. No, I just want to take the opportunity to thank Jeff and the group for putting this together. Originally, we had one small section of trail going from the North Hills piece across to the Bluebird, and working with the city and Five Valleys Land Trust, we decided to open it up where you see the loops and stuff now. That wasn't part of the original plan when we put this conservation easement together in the early 2000s. So we're excited to allow folks to use the conservation easement. And I just think it's a wonderful project, and hopefully at some point in time, this will connect all the way over to the Rattlesnake and Orange Street. So thank you for allowing us to be part of this.
Thank you, Chad, very much. Jeff, do you have any more comments?
I just wanted to add to that one comment that Chad made at the very end. In the plan, and this is one of the first times we've done this, we're really identifying potential future regional connections as well. This property sits in a place where we have city property adjacent, although we don't have public access to this property yet. There is a long-term goal of connecting Grant Creek to Rattlesnake Creek and via other open space properties, not even necessarily city ownership, in that area in the North Hills. And so, we have potential future neighborhood connections to the north. We have potential future open space connections to the south. And that is a core component of this plan as well, understanding that that's an if, not a when, for those potential future connections, right? Right now, there's private property. If there's a willing landowner that is interested in allowing for acquisition or easement to pursue those connections, then we will look for those. Right now, they are not viable. So.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff or Chad from the board? Hearing none, it'd be great to entertain a motion, please.
Dale, I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Thank you.
I move the Missoula Parks and Recreation Board adopt the final Bluebird Preserve Recreation and Special Resource Management Plan as recommended by the Conservation Lands Advisory Committee, with the staff recommended change on the spur to limit that to pedestrian only.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Ms. Markey, I second the motion.
Thank you, Margie. Any other questions for staff? Any public comments?
There's no public comment.
Thank you, Cassie. We're ready for a roll call. Cassie, call the roll, please.
Okay. Dale,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Margie,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, everybody. And we're really excited to open the property to the public late this fall.
Thank you.
Nice job, Jeff. Thank you.
Yes, nice job. Really well done report.
Next action item is 2.3. Even request for Kiwanis Park. I think David's on the line. David, you're up.
Good afternoon, David Selvage, Park Systems and Services Superintendent. I have online with me Carolyn McCauley, Matt Sullivan, and Tony Moretti, I believe, who are proponents of the project. Let me share a screen. The proponents are owners of the property just to the west or the west of our.
David, excuse me.
Yes.
If you meant to share the screen, it did not come up.
I'm sorry. I had to push a button. Okay. In any case, the owners of the property just to the west of the Kiwanis frontage on Front Street are proposing to redevelop the properties. This is the property or location here. There are three options to yes. The recommended option is C from staff. Let me show you the, here's the master plan for the park. It may suggests and recommends that the park remain open and that the tree corridor be established or retained through the park adjacent to their properties. This suggests to us no short-term conflicts with proposed uses of the park. This is a development proposal. This would be a view from the park if you were playing basketball, possibly. This is a 4-story on one side and 3-story on the other. This would be the park view of this proposed new project here. Note though, a privacy wall fence. The proposed location for the access is where my cursor's at, back in here. It's about, I believe this is 20 units. Here's the layout of units and the like. You can see that the rear emergency exit stair is where everybody would come out in an emergency. Towards the back of the building, the front of the building would exit out the front. This is kind of an unusual request. Normally parks are pretty wide open and available for people. We routinely see projects where we identify what the appropriate access is for a park. But in this particular case, the city building code requires either an exit route on the property or a safe dispersal area. And the safe dispersal area, option C, appears to be the appropriate option here, given our adopted master plan and given all the constraints on the park through deed restrictions. Primarily what we want to be careful about is setting a poor precedence.
Hey, David, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes, sir.
Would you, I'm having a hard time locating where this is.
Okay, so this is on Front Street. This is the Rome building.
Got it.
And then here's where it's remains of the old softball field.
Got it.
Be
Thank you very
skinned
much.
in. Here's the restroom, playground in the park. Here, this is our entry into the park. Would you like a street view?
Please.
Okay, give me a moment.
While David's finding the alternative view, one of the primary entrances to Kiwanis Park goes to the north or Front Street, which connects you almost directly with the new public library.
Yes.
And so this development would be right across from the new public library. And what we're trying to do is preserve our SEPTED principles, crime prevention through environmental design, preserve the aesthetic and the climate effects of the tree line path, and then of course the accessibility. This is one of our most traveled through and visited parks in the system because of its location to the downtown and such high density housing. And so what the developers are looking for in this case is added housing, which is one of the primary goals of the city, a priority goal. And what they need to meet code is a place for emergency egress, should there be an emergency inside the building.
Good.
And just as a point of question or clarifying question, sorry. We have nothing to do with the approval of the project itself or building. Our sort of purveyance here is the permanent easement that would cross the existing Kiwanis Park entrance area and where that easement might be located. So we're getting these options of that location.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you see the screen view here with bus stop right in the middle of our entry?
Yes.
And then obviously there's Kiwanis Park with the LWCF sign. This is this is approximately the common property line here. This parking has continued to encroach into the park property. That'll obviously be cured with this. Lots of park trees on the common boundary here with them. So this will be prime redevelopment, prime opportunity for densification. 20 units is a lot of residents just come through one entry, and for that reason, we're recommending a series of conditions, of which staff is recommending all of these conditions be placed on this project for grant of easement. Making sure that the purpose is clear, ensuring that it can be extinguished in future, that the easement, if we needed to, we can relocate it, that the emergency access gate be signed as private, oriented to the residents, that have an alarm, that it's maintained in good condition, that there's a safety security light installed on the developer's property, that we have opportunity to review and approve their fence design if they choose to put one in as part of a building permit here, and that developer will cooperate with us in removing those adjacent park trees, and they will provide for a $2,100 I don't want to call it a donation, a payment for loss of park trees that the forester will use once the project's completed or substantially complete to site additional trees in the park. They are not obliged to be next to the building, but we think that there'd be benefit and opportunity there. And then, so if there's any discussion on conditions, this seems to me to be a fairly appropriate way to avoid a inappropriate precedent. Not many projects would come in and ask us for these things, but for the density and what we're dealing with, I think this is an appropriate ask, and it would support a many number of city goals related to redevelopment and densification of the community and support housing. The owners are on the phone if you have any questions for them, and I'll stand for questions.
John
Thank you,
has his
Dave.
hand raised.
Thank you, David. Casey,
John has had his hand up for quite a while, Dale.
John, go ahead. Sorry.
David, just a quick question. As part of this project, I don't see any, I see the $2,100 that will replace possible trees. Are there any other improvements to that gateway, that north gateway area there? Pathway improvements or anything else that would be part of this project?
We, per the master plan, we're proposing to actually enhance and create a much improved entry. It's has good orientation to the Missoula Public Library. This project would pay, I think there's, how many units are there? They'd pay for the additional new units, an impact fee that could be used to expand and widen this trail or redevelop this frontage. The developers are not interested in making a contribution to a direct contribution to the project on top of their impact fees. I can appreciate that.
And is it staff opinion that that small easement, option C, doesn't detract from that gateway entrance enough to require any additional involvement on the developer's part for that gateway?
That would be correct, John. We think that this is with the conditions on it here, we're not going to have regular use. Most
Okay.
residents will go up through the path and come to the front of their project.
Thanks. One final question. Sorry, on the impact fees that will be generated because of the project, Donna, will those go into a general enterprise fund or will they go into a specific Kiwanis Park enterprise fund?
Impact fees do have to be collected and expended per city ordinance, and they can be spent in the area or region served. And so the impact fees could go into Kiwanis Park or Ron's River Trail or other improvements in the nearby area.
Great. Thank you very much. That's my only questions.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, John. Do the developers have any comments?
No, my name is Matt. My wife, Caroline, unfortunately couldn't join. We have a sick child at home today and he's really ill, so she's taking care of him. But Tony Moretti, our architect, is also on the line. I just would add to, I think, David's excellent overview is that, you know, we are a mom and pop operation. The funding that we use to develop properties like this around town, and we have a handful, not super many, is all generated from our income of working full-time jobs on top of, you know, this kind of full-time job. And so, you know, I just would note that we've owned the property for about 3 years. If you've ever walked down Front Street, these two places are a real blight to the community, in my opinion, and my wife's opinion. We think that the development will really be a fantastic improvement to the park and to the quality of the park. And while David mentioned meeting the city's goals of providing housing to the community, and you know, the conditions that David's laid out here, we're agreeable to. We've been nothing but to try to be agreeable to everything. I will say there was the mention of the contributing more to the path. That was brought up, I think, some time ago. The reason why we can't do that is because, as you probably read in the news every day and are very familiar with, is that construction costs are just incredibly high right now. And to make the interest rates, as you know, in the last couple of weeks have also increased dramatically. And to make this project work, you know, we're going to really need to watch every nickel in order to not go under. This would be our 5th development in Missoula of this size or smaller. And in every case, we lose money for basically the first 2 years that we operate the projects. And just given, you know, the risk involved here, this would be millions of dollars to develop this. We're just uncomfortable taking on more financial burden. But at the same time, we want to improve the character of downtown Missoula. We love it here. We love the property. We want to make it a special place. We want the library to shine, and we feel like we can remove this blight and accommodate the city's goals and our goals all at the same time. Tony, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, hi everybody. It's Tony Moretti. Yeah, I'd say I think the biggest thing I'd mention would be that what this easement allows for is really maximum, not maximum, but a better development, better use of the site, and the ability to get more units on the site to have the second means of egress off the site is really the goal of getting this easement. So, you know, without it, we'd probably be limited to half the dwelling units, and you know, developing really on the top part of that site up by Front Street. So, yeah, it's definitely makes for a better project, better use of the land, I think, and you know, allows us to do more things. So, definitely appreciate your consideration of it.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Matt. Any other questions for David? Hearing none, it'd be great to get a motion on the floor. Anybody out there? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Thank you.
Request, I make a motion that Parks Board approve the request for an easement from Kiwanis Park to meet city building fire code requirements using option C as recommended by the staff.
Is there a second?
This is Margie. I second the motion.
Any other discussion? Any more questions for David or the developers?
I just want to add a comment, Dale. I really appreciate the comments that Mark made, but he made a comment that he thought this development would really enhance the park. And I just, for public record, I mean, I'm going to support it, but I would reverse that from a Parks Board perspective and say that the park enhances the development. To be able to have that kind of a facility near a new development.
No, that's fair.
It's great for the residents.
Yeah, that's totally fair, John. That's a great point. My apologies, I omitted that. I mean, that's certainly why we were, excited about.
Not at all. I just got a little defensive on.
No, it's a good point. It's very fair. Very fair. Noted.
Any other comments from the public?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something as well. I actually lived in that house for 4 years. Yeah. So I just wanted to also point out that those two properties are currently home to low-income people. I just wanted that to be part of the conversation. Sorry. But I'm sure it's going to be a great project. Yeah.
Thanks, Sam. And we appreciated you as a tenant. We do, just to let everyone know, we do rent to all folks, as those houses indicate. We, in other projects that we've developed from the ground up, we also do rent out to individuals that have different income levels. For example, we have tenants who we are on Section 8 housing, for example, that we work with. Our projects are very much middle of the road. They're not the highest end, they're not the lowest end, but our tenants tend to be workers. I think some of the folks who used to live with Sam, for example, in those housing, the housing there are folks who actually build things for a living. And so, we intend to continue to try to rent to those kinds of tenants as we can.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Matt. We ready for a vote? Cassie, would you call the roll, please?
Dale,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Margie,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, David.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is a 2.4 established working group for Here Montana program. Aaron and Don are taking the lead on this. Go ahead, Aaron.
Thanks, Dale. And thanks everyone for being here today. I just wanted to start with a little bit of background about what Here Montana is, and just the reasoning around establishing a working group and why I think it would be great for us to consider moving forward. So Here Montana is a group or is a program out of the Parks and Rec recreation program. And it's focused on bringing BIPOC individuals into outdoor spaces by also allowing or providing equipment, access, and the education around different forms of recreation. It's been an incredible success, in my own personal opinion, for the current time that it's been running. And it currently is seeing a transition from the current program leader to seeing a new potential program leader. So as we're expanding what that transition process looks like, I find it really important to consider establishing a working group of community members that involves individuals that are invested in the program and stakeholders that have attended Here Montana events previously, to have a say and to also be considered as we start looking at this transitional process and having a place for all of those voices to be heard. So that's just kind of my
That's great, Erin.
argument for that. And I also wanted to invite Donna to fill in whatever I might have left out.
Erin, I think it's a fantastic idea. The staff at the department here thinks the program is incredibly valuable. It was built from the ground up. This board, at least 3 of you have been around long enough to remember when Alex Kim founded the program. Very well done. He has since accepted a new position in the city, which is awesome for him. And we as a staff really look forward to working with Erin and the participants in the program to continue a legacy that has started and hope for even bigger and better things. And so we're in a position as employees here at the city to listen carefully and see where we can best support the transition of the program.
Erin, are you willing to serve as a liaison and actually participate in the work group?
Yes, I am volunteering to serve as part of the working group, and also looking for a co-chair either within the community or someone else to help with this working group as well.
Cool. Any other discussion? Are there any members of the public that wish to comment?
You're not, oh, I have, Kelly has raised their hand.
I didn't mean to, sorry.
No,
Okay.
oh, sorry. This is Kelly Kareem, another Kelly.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Thank you for bringing this item on the agenda. I just wanted to, as a member of the public and as somebody that has been involved in here, Montana, again, emphasize the points that Erin made about how important this program is to the public. And I'm a member of the BIPOC community myself. I've both led and participated in different Here Montana events, and it's something that I really see potential for the city of Missoula to become a leader and an example to other cities in Montana and just in our country in general about how these types of programs can be run and how we can provide equitable access to groups that are underrepresented in our public spaces. So I just want to give kind of as a member of the public, my vote for support to create a group of BIPOC individuals that includes Erin. And as well, I'd like to see Alex Kim take a role in that group as well to helping to transition this. It's really important that we have BIPOC voices as a part of this transition. And one way that I've been thinking about this is if we had, and it's not exactly parallel, but if we had a women's outdoor group that the city was running and supporting, it would not be appropriate to have, for example, a man take over and guide that transition of a women's outdoor, a women's led group to find a new leadership for that. And so this is sort of a solution that we're hoping we can develop a way to transition this thoughtfully where BIPOC voices are heard and at the forefront of that transition. So I am also happy to help with Erin, help on this committee, if that's of interest and if that's what the rest of the BIPOC community would like to see as well for Here Montana.
Thank you, Kelly, for your comments. Cassie, anyone else?
So I've had public comments come in. I see John's hand is raised. I had a public comment submitted while we're in the meeting through the agenda item. I've never really had that happen, but it's a number of questions. And I'm not sure how we want to proceed with that. I can read them out and discuss it, or we could go with John first.
Let's do John.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a interest in this as well. I'd love to see more information be developed as part of the working group that could be disseminated to the public. I'm on Friends of Missoula Parks, and we assisted Alex doing some fundraising And when the program first came to us to do some fundraising, I looked for some information and it was really hard to find. There's more information out there now, and that's obviously to be expected in a new program, but I would love the working group to maybe tackle gathering some information that can help us add that to the parks website and to parks programming so that the general public might have a better idea about the program as well.
Thank you. Hey, Cassie, would you read the questions, please?
Sure. So this says this community questions. First question is, why was there a situation in the first place where Alex's voice and leadership was and is silenced?
Would the board, I'm wondering if the board wants to hear the questions and then I can provide a brief staff report, but what I'm thinking is the questions would inform the working group in development of working group structure and engagement and how that might work. And I defer to Aaron with that question, but it seems it would be a better space maybe for listening and thinking rather than right here on the floor.
Right, and there's 5 specific questions.
Why don't you read the question, then we'll defer them to the working group.
Okay. Would you like me to repeat the first one or
Please.
continue?
Please.
Oh. I'll just paraphrase. Why was there a situation where Alex's voice and leadership was silenced? Why is Alex not leading the process from his new role? Can we continue to take the program back with the leadership of Alex? Will you give him a position where he can run this program? 4, can we ask Alex what he wants as this is his program? And 5, why is Parks and Rec speaking for Alex as this is not their program? That's about it.
I think we should defer all those questions to the working group. Any other public comments?
No.
Any other questions for Aaron or Donna?
I was wondering if Donna had the staff response that you wanted to provide, or if you wanted to reserve those for the working group. It's your choice.
I can provide a brief response, but I don't want to speak for any of our employees. And just so that the board and the public knows, there was no tangible action to silence anybody. Alex had the opportunity to accept a job as a Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Specialist for the city of Missoula, which is at least a 40-hour-a-week position, and would not allow room to run, work 2 separate jobs inside the city beyond 40 hours a week. And Alex was aware of that when he accepted. And our goal, at least in my opportunity to get to visit with Aaron and other participants and Alex, is that he will indeed be involved in the transition. That had always been our goal. So I just want to reaffirm that will happen. And I think that having a working group is such a better space for folks to get to ask questions. We'll answer what we can, as long as it's not, confidential matters related to employees. I'm not going to speak for employees. That's not my role as to what their choices are. But we absolutely look forward to working with the participants throughout the transition with Aaron and others to help lead the way, including Alex, and just following your lead. This is something I think we can do together. I would, from my perspective, I view my role in this when the time comes for me to get to listen is to help remove any barriers that may exist, because like at times barriers are perceived that may not actually be there. And so if we find we have barriers that are preventing participation, limiting participation in any way, we will absolutely do our best to listen and figure out what those are and overcome them.
Thank you, Donna. I think it's best we take these questions to the working groups and they can start there. Any other questions for Aaron or Donna?
I have one more question for Aaron. Aaron, in your thoughts about the working group, have you considered how many people you want to be on that and how you're going to determine who those people will be?
So that kind of goes back to not making all those decisions for this community. So I really do want to first hold a invitation where I have those questions asked, because it's a program that's supposed to benefit the community. So I don't want to be the only talking head, for lack of a better term for it. So this is where, that outreach kind of goes out before making those decisions. But I think that's what I'm kind of heading towards for making those choices.
Aaron, you might consider an open house kind of forum.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Any other questions for Aaron or Donna? Are we ready for a vote?
No, we have to have a
motion.
recommended motion.
I know.
So I'll make a motion. I recommend that we establish a working group to lead the transition of the Here Montana program until a qualified supervisor or manager is hired.
Thank you, Marty. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Kelly. Any other questions for the staff? Any more discussion? Any more comments from the public?
No.
Kelly, Cassie, do you call the roll, please?
Dale,
Yes, a definitive yes.
John,
Yes.
Margie,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. So we're done with the action items. Thank you, Aaron, for willing to serve on the working group. We really appreciate it. Next agenda, we're now at agenda item 3.1. Ryan Applegate.
Hey, thank you for your time. Ryan Applegate, Business and Admin Superintendent, and I think I'm here today to share our progress towards our fiscal year 23 annual budget process and where we are with developing new requests as a department. In chatting with Donna on preparing this, we decided that it would be a good opportunity to share what we presented at Parks and Conservation, our Conservation, Climate and Parks Committee on our mid-year, and add kind of looking forward to 23 items, and then share an unprioritized list of kind of all the budget requests that we are considering bringing forward as part of the budget process this year. I'm going to focus this presentation on our annual budget requests and less so on our 5-year capital improvement program. That's the plan, and I'm going to attempt to share my screen. If I can remember how to do it on Zoom now, I can do that. Share screen. Okay. And please do speak up with questions or comments. We would really appreciate that. Let's see, I need to pick a screen, share. And I believe folks are seeing idle slide to the presentation. Great, thank you. So we'll focus on our mid-year and focus on our main operating funds. I may go through some slides a bit quickly to really focus on, you know, talking about our looking forward to fiscal year 23. Do a little bit of vision, kind of in context, talk about our main operating funds, what we have been able to accomplish in the fiscal year 22 as part of that budget process, and then looking forward to 23 in our both in our Park District number 1, which is our main operating fund, and our dedicated operating funds. We go real hard at the city, or try really hard to enact the city of Missoula's vision, an inclusive city where all people can live and celebrate meaningful lives, meaningful, purposeful, and fulfilling lives in a community, offering unparalleled recreation, cultural, and entrepreneurial opportunities. And we look at our budget enhancements through lenses of the mayor's strategic priorities and of this board's strategic priorities, including organizational excellence, which kind of contextualize for the park board priorities is caring for all people in the lens of economic health, safety, and wellness, community design and livability, and environmental quality. Some example of those projects, well, you know, I think we also, in context, you know, working with coming out of hopefully the pandemic and looking at changing trends, meeting a high level of demand, and trying to still plan ahead. So the use of parks and open space is super high. Community demand from our programming is really high, and we'll talk more specific about that. Really involving in the development process and the planning process for equity, safety, and liability or livability in this time of rapid development. Working through inflation and supply chain challenges, and then really looking at employee retention and recruitment. It's in full focus right now as we're you know, challenged with the same challenges that every other business is facing in the employee market right now. We've been working to redefine work. You know, we've gone all virtual, and now we're working to go back to hybrid public meetings. And we're also working really hard to onboard different technologies to help us. Soon this meeting will be hopefully in a Teams format, because that's the way, you know, the software systems that the city has adopted. Work really hard in safety and wellness. These are some of those projects and ongoing work that we're doing. The Lowell Community Neighborhood Center, which we'll talk about more, in Westside Park, our equity and facilities and programming, working towards envisioning the current Center for Recreation and Creativity. These are more of our capital stuff in that safety and wellness range. Economic health and community design and livability, keeping up and being involved in the development plan reviews, ensuring that our commuter trail network is meeting the needs, reaching out to our residents and community to do master planning, and using all funds available, and in partnership with our community to get capital projects done. So and then of course, environmental quality is a big focus for us. You know, from the curtailing reliance on synthetic pesticides to looking at the energy we use and how we consume it and where it comes from, to increasing our ability to plant trees, to ensuring that our trailheads are you know, meeting the demand, and that we are looking to you know, reforest our public spaces and look towards equity in our public spaces. Those are kind of the breadth of parks is in, and I know all of you are intimately aware of this, and I'll get into a little bit more of the details as we look to fiscal year 23 now. Parks operates out of 5 primary funds. Like I said, the main one is Park District number 1. This does receive a transfer in from the general fund. That transfer has been held relatively static for the last 4 to 5 years, and most of the growth in our tax-based funding has come from the Park District number 1.
And that Park District number 1 carries forward year to year, right?
The Park District number 1 does carry a fund balance forward year to year. It is a general fund special account. It is not a totally separated, but we do have a fund balance that we'll look at that can fund some items above what our revenues are coming in. So I think, yes, the answer is to that question, Dale.
Thank you.
Yeah. The voter approved 2018 Conservation Lands and Stewardship Fund is a $4 million tax-based fund that helps to, it transfers funds into the Park District and also carries payroll associated with the Conservation Lands and Management Program. We have a dedicated Fort Missoula Regional Park Operation and Maintenance Fund, which is jointly funded by Park District number 1 and a contribution to the county. So we work on updating that annually to ensure that we have the funding mechanisms in place for increased expenses. This fund also operates with a fund balance with an eye towards cyclical maintenance. We operate our Fort Missoula Regional Park Recreation Fund. This is a fee-for-service fund and supports the rental programs, mostly out at our diamond and rectangular fields and shelters at Fort Missoula Regional Park. And then our Aquatics Enterprise Fund. And so those are kind of the 5 main funds we'll be talking about today, and I'm looking forward to the 23 process. If we kind of smash those funds together and look at where our revenues come from, total it's about 10.2, with 73% of those funds coming from tax supported and about 21% coming from fee for service activities. This includes the aquatics and fee for service programs. Our expenses are similar.
Could you go back,
about
please?
69%. Sure.
This is great stuff, Ryan. Thank you for putting this together. So I just went around the circle trying to look at the funds. What's the health levy transfer?
The city is self-insured and operates from a health perspective. And so the health levy fund is a separated tax generated fund that transfers in to the general fund, Park District number 1, all funds that hold payroll in it to cover the premiums related with health insurance costs.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you. So yeah, that's overall about a $10.2 million in revenues, about 73% coming in. And then when we look at our expenses, it's very similar, about 69% in the operations, business and administration and projects and planning functions, and about 26% in provision of recreation services. And so this indicates there is some tax-based support for our fee for service activities. We average around between 75 and 80% fee recovery in our recreation program services. So that's why you see a little bit more expense authority, that 26% of expenses versus 23% of revenues.
And what's our debt obligation now?
The 2 recent bond measures, we have yet to sell that debt, but without rolling stock, it's about 2.3 million. And then with the rolling stock, that is at about 270,000 per year. So we haven't, with the two recent limited revenue bonds based on Park District revenue, those bonds have not been sold yet. We expect those coming online probably fiscal year 24 in debt service at about, I can look that up. I don't have the exact number, but I will. It's a good question. I'll look that up for you, Dale.
Thank you.
Yes, John.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, so I've been on the park board for quite some time, and the level of expertise and the ability that the department now has to track and monitor and justify budgets is really outstanding. So thank you for bringing that and refining that to the department, Ryan. This isn't an attachment in our packet, and I know that I still have a lot of trouble sometimes understanding the complexity and components of it. I think I would benefit from getting a copy of this, and I'm guessing that maybe our new board members would as well. The department is a very important department in the city, and you can see by the complexity of the numbers that both the funding of and the expenses out of come from a large area. And I also want to just do one other quick shout out, and that is on the fee for service side. Early on, one of my questions was, for some of these programs, can the Parks Department recoup expenses and relieve the taxpayer burden? And I think the department has done a great job of that. And I'd like to continue to see that grow where appropriate while still allowing for the park goals of access for all.
Thank you, John. Sorry to keep missing you. I've been focusing on these pie charts. Would you make sure that our planning session that you have this printed out? Thank you.
I will get this on. Yep, I will make sure that this is all forwarded along with our draft budget enhancement requests for sure. And I apologize it wasn't done beforehand. We are both, yep. So my apologies on that. Just looking through the fiscal year 22 process, and then this gets to Dale's point of using some of that fund balance. There is a required about 5% hold on any fund balance that is state statutory, and we are above that realm. And so in the 22 budget process, we did fund some items via Park District fund balance. This included citywide tier 1 sport court repairs, which we are in the process of going out to bid for. I think it's 11 courts that include both restoration of courts that are failing and an expansion in some cases via use of impact fees on the capacity increase related portions of those repairs and expansions. We fund in some increase to aquatic support to operations. We have, I think 3 years ago, got an ongoing tax support for aquatics that moved it from 203 to 253,000. This is still, we're seeing a shortfall and coming out of pandemic. We'll talk to that a little bit more, but we are funding some operational items via fund balance on aquatics right now. We enhanced the share of the fund recreation grants. We paid for some equipment purchases related to turf maintenance, and we took on some debt related to a grapple boom truck for the forestry division to increase efficiencies in that division. We also had funded 2 recreation vans development on our PROS plan and some bathroom repairs that, due to capacity, we are not going to get to this year. And so we'll be looking at putting those forward again in fiscal year 23 for an annual budget update, most likely based on fund balance. And then we are also successful in prioritizing some ARPA, the city-based ARPA funds for equity and program delivery. This helped to continue our sliding fee scale in our after school and out of school programming, and it helped to reimburse our share of the fund scholarship, which we were able to increase both in the amount awarded and in the income stratifications that those scholarships are available for. Those are self-reported income stratifications. And it helped us to operate Base Camp, which is the old public library, throughout this year in an ARPA-funded programming. So, and we will likely be forwarding asks of similar nature in 2023 based on ARPA. Let's see. So if we look at our overall park district, our main operating fund, we had budgeted revenues of about 8.2. We think we're going to come in above that. That's with all of our tax allocation being fully accounted for, and then an increase in fees, mostly driven on youth programming, and our shelters and field rentals are increases there. And a total expenditure budget of about 9.3, and will mostly on vacancy savings be below that. Again, our expenditures were budgeted higher than our revenues based on our fund balance. And so we budgeted ourselves for about a $1 million fund balance, which is still well above the statutory requirements. At the end of the year, we're looking at about 1.7, some for vacancy saving, some for just not being capacity related, not being able to get to projects. So that's kind of our projection going into fiscal year 23. And kind of go through division wide, and we'll look at the numbers, but I'll talk to more the 23 requests as well. So total fee for services budgeted around 619,000. Our projection is around 714,000. We're actually at 723,000 right now in revenues. And this is when we talk about the recreation division. This is our youth programming, our adult programming, basically those two items. It's not including aquatics, and it's not including our Fort Missoula recreation fee. This is just our, and our revenues are up mostly on youth side. Our adult side is lagging a bit, and we haven't fully recovered to the numbers pre-pandemic yet, but our youth has. And our expenses are higher. I note that we're budgeted to 0, and we're going to project that we're going to be above, and have a little bit in the black. You can also see that the general fund park district contribution to get our revenues to match expenses is around 232, which equates to about a 73% cost recovery. We're thinking we're going to hit around 77, potentially higher. Looking at 23, like I said, our youth program is leading the way. Adult program still lagging a little bit. We're going to look to procure those vans. We've had just a hard time procuring vans. No one has them in availability, and potential to look toward increasing the budgeted revenues to help with overall payroll increases. One thing that we are seeing a lot of, and which is payroll increases in fiscal year 23 at the baseline level. And so we have to keep balancing those, what is revenues and what is our cost recovery rate. And if we're going higher in revenues, can we budget for that and relieve that tax portion of it and keep cost recovery the same? So we're looking towards that in 23. Our Lowell Neighborhood Center and community programs, City Council supported this, I believe, in fiscal year 23, which an increase to the budget of around 90,000. It also, this fund also houses this activity within the park district houses our Here Montana program and our Lowell Neighborhood Center. And we are over budgeted and projected to be over budgeted in fiscal year 23. We're looking towards partnerships, whether it's the form of grants like we did receive to support the Here Montana 12.5, or with Missoula County Public Schools to run those programs and break even. They have a tremendous amount of benefit, both in measurable Lowell program, since, or at least casually, correlated with increased academic performance since our programs have been enacted there. So we're really excited about those programs, and also to develop that community neighborhood community center in that area. We'll be looking to start being able to make some budget projections. This, as you see on the top, the charges for services is what we have received in revenue from those rental availabilities when we are running the Lowell program in the evening and weekends. And so we're starting to see our ability to potentially project some revenues there. Fort Missoula Regional Park, we are bouncing back, especially rectangular fields. I've been out there recently. I go out there on Sundays, and it's just amazing. There's a ton of people out there recreating all over the place. So we are expecting to exceed budgeted revenues and kind of look to that pre-pandemic level with is our hope. We also operate some enterprise accounts where we hold back some of the fees so we can invest in the park. Those are growing as well. Looking into fiscal year 23, based on the turf working group recommendations, we will be requesting most likely to fund a maintenance worker position to help with increased level of service at the fields out there. And partially that will be funded through the recreation fees or the rental fees at the rectangular field. Those increased, particularly at the rectangular field, higher than other fees to be able to support this maintenance worker position. Aquatics. This is an enterprise fund right now. It has a structural imbalance to it. The working capital enterprise fund means that it has a balance sheet associated with it, so it's carrying liabilities, and that there's a lot of more of accounting in this fund. And we talk about where the fund balance is in the form of a working capital, and the fund balance is in a negative territory right now, and there is a structural imbalance in the annual operations of it. Park District and the general fund support Aquatics fund to the tune of, right now it's $250,000 ongoing, and then we supplement that with additional Park District fund balance. This year, and we perform typically better than budgeted. And so you can see we were budgeted at a negative 122. We're going to perform about 31. Some of that is because it's really hard to staff, and we are operating at safe levels, but not at the levels we want to, particularly meaning a lot of our managers and program specialists are walking the deck and involved in programming, and so we're looking to remedy that in fiscal year 23 in a number of different ways. So one is the potential for ARPA fee recovery. This fund, while we stayed open and offered amazing services through the pandemic, that was at a cost, and we lost, depending on how you calculate it, but straight up revenue, we lost about $970,000 in revenue over the last 2.5 years of operating. We were able to save on expenses, and so the net of it is around a $500,000 deficit over the last 2 years, and we'll be forwarding an ARPA-based fee recovery request for the city ARPA funds to help with the fee recovery. So that will be going forward. That can help with that decreasing in working capital.
Is that
We'll also be
gonna
looking
granted?
to.
Is
It
the
is definitely in the conversations. I can't project what, at what level it will be granted, but it is, we are keeping it in front and center as time is allowed for us to do so.
And that's like 950, how much you said?
The total is about 970,000. The net, so we were able to save expenses as well due to decreased capacity, a lot less bathers in and out of the water, savings on chlorine supplies due to, so the net effect is around $550,000. And so we are, that's our target between those two numbers is what we're hoping for. We're also looking to convert some intermittent staff into full-time staff that would provide benefits and provide some regularity. It would decrease our training needs, and it would, just really help meet our equity goals and help meet our programmatic goals. And that does come with a cost. We can transition some budgetaries, but there is some cost, and so we have that budget request together too. We are also looking at the aquatics fund budget numbers because, like I mentioned, we always perform better, but it's hard to, aquatics is very weather dependent, especially our Splash Montana and even our currents. Is it a cold and rainy May, or is it a sunny and beautiful May? Is it hot in June and July, or is it smoky starting July 4th, right? These all impact revenue and to somewhat expenses at aquatics. But we are looking at the last, starting in 19 and going back to 15, looking percentage wise, what do we typically spend in our budget? What are our revenues? And try to correlate our budget such that we can have a conversation that the structural shortfall is the tax-based contribution we need to look for. And so we're doing that work now, and we're also considering removing the enterprise status and housing the aquatics fund within the park district activity. That would remove the liability if this is a governmental fund and have a lot of accounting stuff, but it would also help us really look at the operational needs of aquatics annually. And then we're also, as these facilities are 17 years old now, looking at the increasing cyclical maintenance and reinvestment needs. And structurally, how can we separate the ongoing reinvestment needs from that annual operational needs? So we're doing a lot of work in the aquatics right now, and as we move to the fiscal year 23 budget. This shows you kind of a 3-year look at, green is our fiscal year 19 net in aquatics. After subsidy, we were actually in the black, and that it was a pretty good summer until it got smoky in July, but it was warm in June in 19, if people remember. And then you can see 20 really holding with that pattern until the pandemic, right? Staying open, our net really falls down, and this is where we get to that around 500. 21 fiscal year was the biggest pandemic effect for us. And even in 22, we were holding pretty steady, had a great June. It got, I believe, smoky a bit in July. We were holding steady. We had some closures and we had to cancel lessons in January and February, rebounded in March. And so this kind of where we are at a look to date at the end of April. You can see also our attendance kind of mimics that. This is our fiscal year 19, 20, 21. You can see everything's lower during that major part of the pandemic and starting to pick up in 22 again. We really believe Aquatics is a super inclusive facility. The city has done a really good job of encouraging that with scholarships and keeping admissions low. The flip side of that is expenses are expenses, and so we need to find that balance. It's a regional attraction, it's affordable and safe, right? We have a high demand, and we do a great fee recovery at Aquatics. So that's really always important to remember. That's kind of our recreation budgets and kind of what we're looking forward to in 23. And our operations side of stuff, we have some vacancy savings. Our charges for service, if we kind of looking at our park district, the main portion of our park district budget covers operations, project and planning and administration. We cover our system-wide non-fort rentals in our fee-for-service here because it's really tied to the operation and maintenance of those facilities. Our shelter rentals because it's tied to the trash removal and ability to maintain those. That has been up. And so we're thinking we're coming in a little higher in our overall revenues and lower in our expenses, based mostly on salary savings, and then those capital projects funded by Park District 1 fund balance that we are not going to get to due to capacity this year. Looking forward to 23 and our ecosystem urban forestry, we're looking to fully fund a maintenance worker as a shared maintenance worker. Some of those responsibility will be to drive a water truck that we're hoping that is going to finally come into our fleet this year, which was ordered a year and a half ago. And that is a joint position funded by the Conservation, Stewardship, and Mill Levy Fund, and hopefully some of Park District contribution. And we're also looking to increase supplies, mainly related to our ball and burlap nurseries, which is increasing our production for planting, to try to reverse that curve of more trees dying than we're getting in the ground and getting them into places that are underserviced in trees to develop that canopy. So those are two requests coming out of our urban forestry division. Develop parks and trails. We're looking really at a high priority is season extensions. Season extensions for maintenance workers and potentially our MTA staff. Maintenance workers, a lot of them are at 7 months, pushing them to a 9.25 month. A big ask to provide this increase for maintenance workers would provide year-round health insurance. We're hoping will increase retention of this position for people being able to live in Missoula, and also really help our program non-labor staff with training and retraining and that, all that time required with that consistent turnover. So really looking to how do we get people here? What can we offer to keep people and retain people? We think it's a huge need, and so focused on that. And then also there is work. We have work in the shoulder seasons more and more, and whether that's snow removal or other items, preparing all of our, our making sure we're dealing with our deferred maintenance and our small capital equipment and things of that nature. That's a big one. We're also looking to, keep up an add a maintenance worker for the turf working group recommendations, and also a potential maintenance worker for these unfunded capital assets that keep coming on. This is in the form of the Russell Street improvement, the orange roundabout, that is our maintenance responsibility, the improvements on Van Buren, the capital, the increase in park at MRL and Jeffrey Park, which is still have never been fully funded for the operations of, and then unfunded maintenance on trail extensions, such as the Bitterroot Trail extensions, the South Reserve PED extensions, and Milwaukee Trail. So there's a lot of items, and our system is growing, and we put forward requests, and those are funded to the extent they can be, but those items haven't been fully funded, and so we bring those requests forward again. And sometimes we can repackage them and say, well, if we get, if we do some season extension, what does that do to help us with these requests below? And so we're working through that right now. And then that additional turf maintenance worker. Yes.
Are you close to being done?
Yeah, last one.
Great, thank you.
This is our Conservation and Stewardship Mill Levy Fund. This fund is required to have a 10% holdback, 10 to 15% holdback. Right now, we're at about 25%, and we've enacted our first 3-year plan. And there are a couple of asks looking to go for fiscal year 23. It's an extension of an MTA. It's helping to fund that shared maintenance worker for the urban forestry that I was talking about. And there's a couple contractual obligations for the front country ranger. So there's 3 smaller asks that total around $30,000. We have around $100,000 of room in that Conservation and Stewardship Mill Levy Fund before we dip into, hey, we're not saving as much per year as we promised that we would. So we're mindful of that as we plan for it, and also stabilizing our recent growth in that fund based on the Conservation Stewardship Mill Levy, and trying to say, okay, reprioritize what we need going forward. That, I think, and then I guess Fort Missoula operations, working with the county right now to ensure that we get adequate funding for payroll increases and any inflationary increases. This is a funding that's provided 48% by the county so far, and 52% by the Park District number 1. So that is what I got for you.
Right, this is incredible. It's a lot of information to digest.
Yes, and I apologize I didn't get it out. I also, the last bit is out. We will share this as well. I kind of talked to these as we went through, but these are our unranked budget requests. And so our next step now is to meet as a parks team and get our request ranked. And we could potentially come back through this process. The budget process doesn't end in the city until the 1st of August. So yeah, this is where we are at right now. And I'm sorry if I cut you off, Dale.
It's okay. Have you forwarded this to Jenny Tribes? We have this Thursday?
I have not, but I can.
Please do.
Okay.
Any questions for Ryan? John?
In the past, the park board members have had an opportunity when it comes to ranking to provide some input. Will that be afforded again this year?
We can provide that opportunity again at our June meeting. I think the strategic planning work that we do on Thursday will actually help inform staff as well.
Great, thank you.
Direction.
Any questions for Ryan? You've come a long ways, Ryan. This is incredible information.
Thank you, Dale.
You're welcome. It's very, very comprehensive. So,
yeah.
No questions for Ryan. So Donna, you're up for a director's report.
All right, we have just a few minutes. I wanted to touch on some highlights for the board. Lots of things going on. With our strategic planning on Thursday, you'll hear a lot more about our team. It's been a difficult 3 years, to say the least, like it's been for many. During the pandemic, everything was, all boots on the ground, so to speak, and keeping programs operational and making sure that residents had access, providing 50 hours a week of care for children in programs, increasing the availability and ready accessibility of program support funding, opening up base camp. And then we immediately rolled into almost like a pent-up demand for program services. And so in the spring, on April 3rd, we registered about 3,600 kids for summer camps and still have about 2,500 or more on the wait list. And that has to do a lot with capacity, employees, transportation, sufficient number of permits to access public lands. Certainly we do a lot in the parks, but a big part of the quality component of that program is the ratio and the access to really wonderful outdoor spaces. Fort Missoula, a couple of weekends ago, I think we're back to fiscal year 19, pre-pandemic, shattered some numbers. We had a lacrosse, softball, pickleball, and 2 or 3 other major events. I know that parking became an issue. We're trying to work through that.
That would be forestry days.
Yes, forestry days. It was a massive weekend at the fort. We almost certainly, you'll hear more about this on Thursday, will not be able to be to sufficient employment capacity to do what we would typically have done before the pandemic. And so that means we will be doing some levels of triage and hours available for facilities, number of concession stands available. In areas of maintenance, there'll be a level of triage, maintaining the areas that bring the greatest benefit and value to residents, which may mean some of the facilities that tend to lean more towards the aesthetic versus provides a function either for climate or access might wane a bit. But that's part of what we want to talk to all of you on Thursday is, staying focused, staying grounded, taking care of employees, and at the same time, massive demand. A year ago, the city shattered all records in permits. There is a lot of housing being built today that was permitted a year ago and already breaking last year's shattered records in permit reviews, subdivision reviews. And Parks and Recreation plays a pretty significant role in that. We are a member of the core city development review team. The Parks Department's role is largely around climate sustainability and resiliency, walkability, ensuring that we have a high quality urban forest, which is probably one of our greatest challenges we face today as a place and a society here in Missoula. Ensuring continued access. Ryan talked a lot about aquatics, and we do recover a greater percentage of costs than other facilities in Montana. And yet it always becomes a focal point of, cost to taxpayers. And so it's weighing all of those things that we try to do as a group of employees every day while hearing what folks want from us. We know that big projects that are super important to many are projects like the Clark Fork River Restoration and Access Project. Ryan led the charge in partnership with the downtown and others, lots of work and help from Morgan on an EDA grant that we're hoping to land to be able to get river access at Caras Park. We're in the midst of phase 1. Caras Park just had one of its largest events since before the pandemic. Really important to a neighborhood, renovations to West Side Park. Pre-pandemic, we took 300 kids on 6 buses to 6 parks so the kids could design the playground of their dreams. And they are now participating as a youth construction team working with Jackson Construction on what do you look at when you build a park. And so that's underway. And of course, in the midst of all of this, there's shortages of contractors and laborers and supply chains. And those things that you hear about nationally and globally, that happen right here at home in us trying to conduct business. We have a number of projects out to bid, a significant number of neighborhood court projects. Not sure we're going to even get a bid. Playfair tennis courts out to bid. Not sure we will get a bid. There's so much work in this community and so in a sufficient amount of shortage and cost volatility. It is what it is, and we're doing our very, very best to deliver the services that are being requested. We're working with the transportation team around getting the north side pedestrian facilities fixed. Those are in the California pedestrian facility, both major facilities that need major repairs and renovations. So we were very hopeful for federal transportation support because those funds are available for pedestrians. And one of the focal points for Parks and Recreation is always looking first at pedestrian, and then of course transit, and then bicycling, because those are things that keep our community affordable, active, healthy, and also address climate challenges. Another big other areas of projects, huge requests from almost every neighborhood for their project. Could be anything from a cleanup day in a greater neighborhood and support to a major project development, a neighborhood grant, trying to figure out how to help with those. We continue to work with our turf folks. I think the turf is in pretty good condition. We had some real wet weather, much needed, of course, from an environmental perspective, mountains and streams, but also presents challenges locally on the fields, even when we completely shut off the irrigation. Our trailheads continue to receive super intense use, very, very intensive. And so a lot of focus on trailhead development, keeping folks on trails to the best of our ability to preserve the habitat and the wildflowers and the grasslands and all those things that give us these opportunities to observe wildlife. Another big project on Marshall Mountain, working with multiple partners, the confluence communities, the county, federal government, neighbors, users, the potential for Marshall Mountain to help us to have a mountain recreation park to absorb some of the need and the demand in a growing community where access to the outdoors is important for everybody. For some of you, you may not know that this is where we take a lot of our camps, where we can actually self-permit our youth programs to have access. And it's not only Parks and Rec programs, but Montana Natural History Center and MOLA, and the list just goes on and on, the numbers. Jumping around to the other side, the Knife River ponds did finally transfer to the city a couple of years ago. They are more fondly referred to now as the Fort Missoula ponds, another phase of Fort Missoula Regional Park. We are on hold with that for a while. We want to get to a planning process this winter. The university has some interest in working with us, but the primary reason to take our time with this is the ecosystem at those ponds is developing, and we are seeing a greater and greater diversity of songbirds and waterfowl and wildlife, and as Jeff works with his team to enhance the vegetation to move it towards native and give it some soil to actually grow in, we'll be going in a good direction. We're working with a wonderful developer in the Swiftkane area on a park that will be called West Side Park and Farm. It will be our next community park, about the same size as McCormick, made up of pathways and a nice big hill for playing on, and playgrounds and gardens, including edible forest and partnership with All Nations Health Center. We're also working on projects to link Ron's River Trail. We're looking at trying to follow the Bitterroot opportunities, and that's all on hold until the Montana Rail Link and BNSF rail line details are figured out, and so everything's just on hold. But we don't have any reason to think that our trails won't continue along all of those rails, but yet another thing that we're trying to track. David has landed a number of grants, and so we've got some pavement preservation projects going on out there. And in the midst of all of this, TJ Machado, our superintendent of developed parks and trails, has moved on and started his own lawn company in Missoula. And so Link has very kindly, generously, and professionally stepped up, but he's handling it on his own. Grant Carlton, our open space program manager, has landed a position in the state of Washington, and his last full day was last Friday, and he's helping us out a little bit part-time because we have some acquisitions going on. We are negotiating for lands, for additional park lands on the west side. Keep your fingers crossed that we're actually able to land that. We're negotiating in the Swift Canyon area for extension of Milwaukee Trail Corridor. And so it's really difficult for us to lose folks. Neil Miner, as you remember, left us in February. Nathan McLeod has stepped into that position through a very robust recruitment process. He's doing really well. We filled our other 2 landscape architect positions, and today I learned that we're going to lose one to a higher paying job in the community. And so it really is a like other businesses, we're seeing a lot of people coming and going, and it is it's challenging, and I think it's there's multiple opportunities, but there's multiple challenges, and it can put a lot of stress on a department of individuals who care deeply. We did do focus groups with about 60 of our employees a couple of weeks ago. They were facilitated by Ginny Tribe, who will be our facilitator on Thursday. We have 2 more focus groups tomorrow, so we will have listened to about 80 of our 100 job attached employees. And what we are hearing is folks are tired, they're exhausted, they're very, very proud of what they have done, what we have done in keeping the service to the public, access to lands, access to programs. And so one of the things we'll be focusing on Thursday is what next and what are our priorities. And so
Hey,
just
Donna,
leave it at that.
Donna, are you going to send out a pre-planning worksheets or agenda or bundles or something like that?
I visited briefly with Ginny yesterday. I will be forwarding to the board the mayor and council's 6 priority strategic goals. 2 of those are overarching umbrella goals: climate sustainability and resiliency, climate conservation, and the other overarching is justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And then the 4 areas include housing, natural and built community livability in the natural environment, health and wellness, and organizational excellence.
Great. Have you seen an agenda for other days going to flow on Thursday?
I expect that, well, Cassie will issue the agenda, and technically the whole agenda for the day is just a workshop planning session for the board. That's the whole agenda item. No action on that day, just a lot of conversation.
A lot of brainstorming.
And then Ginny will have agendas available when we get there. Generally, she's pretty good at just helping us make the day flow so everybody is heard.
Good. It's 2 o'clock. Anybody have any questions for Donna?
Meg has her hand up.
Who does?
Meg, one of our department staff.
Meg.
That was an accidental touch. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Then nothing, no more.
It'd be great to get a motion to adjourn.
This is Margie. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
For a second.
Second.
All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
Hey.
Yay.
Yeah.
Motion passes.
Thanks, everybody, and really
Thank you.
special
See you
thanks. Welcome
Thursday.
to our new board.
Thanks, everybody.
Great
Look
job,
forward to
Ryan.
meeting everybody and
Thank
seeing
you.
people in person again.
Thank you, everybody.